Hello everybody, I am back. It's been about 2 months. June was a crazy month. In July, we went to Europe for a month, and then today is August 16th. We're finally getting back on track. So I just wanted to kind of catch up with everything. Hopefully, I mean, it's probably going to be a longer video. I tried to condense my videos, but I hope it's going to be an interesting content just on my journey. I think the last time I recorded a video, it was the first week of, let's see here, biblical counseling. You know, I took the Old Testament survey 1 and 2, and I thought, you know what, I think my June's going to be a little busy because it's a month before we go to Europe for a month. It's a month before we go to Europe for a month. Then on the side, I'm helping my brother-in-law with the cabinet installation. We were gonna start this huge project, and we did. So June was gonna, and then on the mortgage side too, I knew that there were gonna be 6 or 7 deals that I would have to prepare for and close on time as well. And as I was planning for that, I thought, you know what, let's take an easier class. I don't really like writing, and then when I did survey 1 and 2, there were book analysis at the end, and it was like a 6 or 7 page review that I had to type in. I really don't like typing. I like talking more than writing, and I don't know if that's how everybody is. But I thought, you know what, let's get an easier class. So I reached out to my mentor, and actually, no, that time I didn't. And I was like, I just signed up for biblical counselor. I thought, well, how hard is that going to be? We're just going to be talking about some topics. It's all going to be like kind of general information. We're going to look at the heart. And boy, was I wrong. So it's probably the hardest class I've ever taken. I think at the end, I finished that class on July 3rd. At the end, I probably wrote 30 pages, so which is what 5-6 times more than what I did in the previous classes. It was very busy May and June. I do feel that class was a little bit rushed, and as far as the structure, it was a lot of information, and I wish that we concentrated more on the basics. And in contrast, it was a lot of information that they weren't expected you to learn, but you were still getting tested on, and it was a closed book test. And I did not do as well on those tests. I think my overall score at the end was 84%. And mainly, I was a little bit frustrated with that because there were a lot of things. It was a good class still. But I think expectations were not there where they're supposed to be. Like one of the charts that we really had to know is the chart of 3 trees. And instead of diving into that and going through the basics and reinforcing all that knowledge, we kind of went through it but never had the examples of how to fill that out correctly. And let's see if I can actually find the chart. I think that might be a little interesting. But it was, I felt like it was a little bit rushed, and the tests were really hard. Like we were doing a test, and let's see here, course notes. Is this? Yeah, intro into biblical counseling. We had a chart of the 3 trees diagram. You know, the good tree, the bad tree, and the cross. What you're supposed to, the good tree on the left, the bad tree on the right, and the cross in the middle. You have to kind of memorize that and know how to utilize the chart. But it was never shown how to do it correctly and how to behave in certain situations. And maybe I'm just ranting because I got a lower score, but the tests were really, really hard. I think so here's the thing, perfect example. We had to memorize verses. I think I had to memorize 6 verses altogether. And for the very first test, I think it was on the 3rd week, I memorized those verses by heart. I knew I could write them out because I thought we would have to basically not fill in the blanks, but write out the whole verses. Well, and then when the test comes along for just the verses, I go to do the test, and it's all drop downs. If you don't even know the text, the verse, you can kind of guess it because of the drop down boxes, right? And I know those verses by heart, so it was a really easy exam, and I did it probably in 5-6 minutes, got 100% on it. I'm like, oh boy, this is easy. And I still knew that I had to write a lot of stuff, but as far as the tests go, I should be good on that part. And I was wrong there too. I think they kind of set you up for that expectation, and then when the real test came along in the midterm, there was not a single drop-down question. You had to spell everything out, and that's what made it frustrating, because some of those things, they were asking, some of the test questions were about verses where those verses were written, but they weren't the verses that you had to memorize. So somehow I had to know the verse that I had to use for a specific situation, even though I didn't have to memorize it in the class. So I don't know if there was an expectation that I already knew that. I thought we were going to start with the basics, but it was a much harder class. I was done with the class. We went to Europe, and then when we went to Europe, I thought, Europe's going to be great. I'm going to have so much time that I'm not just going to do the classes. I will read a book. And the book that I had in mind is actually this one. What Happened in the Garden by Abner Chow and Master College faculty members. So I thought, what would be really cool is to read this whole book. Well, guess what? I didn't even open it once. This book has been to Europe. It came back. It has some traveling marks. I don't know what you call those, but it was so busy in Europe that I was barely keeping up with the stuff that I needed to do for the New Testament first part. That's the class that I'm finishing up right now, and as a part, it's an 8-week class. On the 6th week, we had to do, and I'll show you this. Let's see. Let's close this out. This class is done. This is my channel. Thanks for all my 2 or 3 viewers, current viewers. I think it's going to be more in the future, maybe not, but maybe my family will watch this. But I don't really care about the views. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I don't. This is what we had to do. So we had, I think this is 50 different sections that the Gospel of John was broken into, and we had to read that, explain what the passage say, and then we had to do an application, how it applies to us. And I'll show you my paper. I think that was a final John counseling. I think this is, nope. An Intro into Biblical Counseling, New Testament 1, New Testament 1 assignment, final. So 36 pages I had to write out, but just so you know, just putting all these references and the titles for explanation and application, that took 10 pages. So I wrote, out of those 36, I wrote 26. That was another eye-opener, like, hey guys, I'm signing up for something a little bit easier. Please help me out here, and the stuff just is not getting easier. I didn't have time in Europe to get started on that, so basically compressed all of that in the last week and a half before the due date for the assignment, because I'm a procrastinator and I can only perform when things need to get done. I'm a terrible planner, and I admit that, and I think that's a good thing that I know that, so then I can be honest with myself. But I kind of knew that coming into the class, that I was like, oh, I'm gonna have an issue with this, because It was scheduled for the 6th week. Let's see, where is it? John outline assignment, 10 hours. And I knew I was in trouble where every week from week number 1, it says, work on the outline 7.5 hours a week. Second week, work on the outline 7.5 hours a week. That's what they were referring to. And I'm like, oh my. It was just 20 hours in the first 3 weeks. So I had to condense all of that into last week. That's basically all that I was working on. I didn't even watch the videos. I just read John. I did the discussion report because I have to do that by Saturday. And I didn't even watch the lectures. I was just working on the assignments. I got that turned in at the very end. Another thing, I use Grammarly a lot. And sometimes I use ChatGPT to restructure some of my sentences. And when I was submitting it, it showed like that it was going to get submitted through Turnitin or something like that, where the software that detects plagiarism and AI use. And I was like, okay, well, let's actually, before we submit it, let's actually run it through one of those things. And I ran it through some free resources, and it was telling me, oh, 70% plagiarism, like 95% AI use, and I was freaking out. I was like, what's going on? Because I was writing everything out myself, but then I was using the Grammarly and stuff and ChatGPT every once in a while, not as to create the base for my paper, but to most of the time what I do is I copy and paste into ChatGPT all my pages to check for proper grammar and proper syntax. I was freaking out because I thought it was going to get flagged for AI use, but I guess what they're looking for is the actual building or writing of the paper with AI, because you can technically go in and type in, hey, write me an essay on this verse, and and the AI will do that for you. And I guess there's a way for them to detect that. So I was freaking out a little bit because I was it was flagging it to me on my end. But then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna submit it as is. I got it submitted, and I got 190 out of 200, which I was surprised. I was hoping to, after the class at the end, the last class that I took, which was the Intro into Biblical Counseling. I was like, anything above 80 is sufficient for me. So I was pleasantly surprised, and he did say that I thought you did a good job on your outline. Your explanation showed some good content, and you covered the passages fully. There were some weaker ones, and I definitely agree with that, because there were like some of them. Actually, let's read one of them. So he said the weaker one was at chapter 5, 30 through 47. Moses and Jesus. Jesus explained that he does nothing on his own initiative, and that his judgment is just because he seeks the will of God, not his own. This is my explanation of the passages of those 17 verses. He mentions that he alone cannot testify about himself, but John's testimony about him is true. Testimonies are crucial for leading people to believe in him. One can see the evidence of who Jesus is by searching the scriptures. Some believe that studying the scriptures would grant eternal life. So my application was, here's a prime example of how we can be religious and far from proper worship of one true God. I was referring to Pharisees. We can look good superficially, but not even understand the basic principles of the gospel. The Pharisees set their hope on Moses and the law, but they had a pretty selective hearing regarding the Messiah that Moses talked about when he was talking about the Messiah. And I totally agree that some of them were a little bit weaker, but however, most were very good. Your application were insightful, and there was relevancy to the passages. I was pleasantly surprised. So 190 out of 200. Then there was exam. Exam was pretty hard, but it was an open book, and I think this is exactly how the exam should have ran. If I compare it to the to the intro to biblical counseling, because biblical counseling was closed book, everything, no drop downs. And in this test for the New Testament, there were some drop downs, there was some stuff that we had to write out, but it was also an open book test. And what it showed me, or what I liked about it, is we don't always have to know the answers by heart, but we as biblical counselors, future biblical counselors, we should be able to know where to look for answers and find them. And I think that was the perfect format for the test, where it was open book, go ahead, find the answers, and we're going to test you on that. I've been trying to do pretty good with my discussions engagement, 12 out of 12. Student introduction previously, we didn't even have to do that. There were no points for it, but I didn't try, so I only got 50% of the score that I could have gotten. 12 out of 12, 11, 12, 12, 12, exam, 88 out of 100. Still happy with that. 190 of 200. I was pleasantly surprised with that. I am going to submit the discussion for this week, and then there's one more week with an exam. Currently, I am at 93%, which is pretty much the same score that I had for the Old Testament. After this class, I decided, you know what, I really have to kind of slow down a little bit, because it can be a little bit too much between the firehouse, mortgages, cabinets, and the seminary. So I decided to take a U.S. history class, and we'll see how that goes. But with my luck, it might be even harder than what I've been taking before. But what I signed up for my next 2 semesters is the U.S. history class. That's going to end. When is that going to end? I think I got to go to modules. So it's going to start August 26th, 10 days from now, and it's going to end in October 20th. And then we're going to have, I'm going to have the New Testament survey 2 for the end of the year. That's pretty much it. As far as the things that I wanted to share, I just don't want to make this video way too long. I think I'll share some stuff next time. Right now, we studied the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, John, and Luke. Right now, currently, I'm working on Acts. And the book of Acts is more of a historical book. There's not too many doctrines, and I'm not trying to downplay the importance of the book of Acts. It has its place, and there are some doctrinal views, but overall, it's more of a historical book of the beginning of the church. And it's really interesting, and I think I'm getting to the point where we're going to be talking about Paul's missionary trips. And the last, I know what I want to talk about. Let's see here, let me open up my notes. So it's about crucifixion, about Jesus being condemned by, let's see here, is it John? Yep, testimony of. I really love this class. I love the professor. He grades stuff on time, very, very fast. His notes make sense, and he's got a PowerPoint attached. He has a PowerPoint that helps us to fill in these correctly, because sometimes you have a class and there is a note section, but there's nothing to refer to the notes from. So it's like if you miss it, then you have a note that it hasn't been filled out. In this case, when I study for this class, I have one screen for the notes, I have the second screen for the PowerPoint, and the third screen for the video, and then I can kind of pay attention to all of them at the same time. But what I thought was really interesting, it's probably most of us don't know, is the trial of Jesus. And there were 6 trials for Jesus. 3 by Jewish leaders and 3 by the Romans. And let's see here, it shows the timeline. Thursday. What I thought was interesting is that the Pharisees hated Jesus so much, and my conviction is that I think that Pharisees knew that Jesus was God, but they did not want to accept him because they were going to get replaced by something else, by Jesus, or they were going to be they were going to become irrelevant. And we read that, if I forget which part, which gospel it's written, but they were scared about becoming irrelevant, and like, well, if that's going to continue, what's going to happen to us? And I do believe that Pharisees knew who Jesus was, and I think that's when Jesus told them that blasphemy on the Holy Spirit is the only sin that will not be forgiven, when he was talking to them, because they knew exactly who Jesus was and they went against him. It was astonishing to see what kind of things they did to accuse Jesus, put him through trial, and kill him, crucify him the very next day, because even they have had certain rules, laws that they were supposed to abide by, and a lot of those rules were broken in that one night, Thursday night. So illegal aspects of the Jewish trials. According to Jewish law, no person could be tried at night. And we see how Jesus went to 3 places. First it was let's see, Anna's house. Then it was his father-in-law Caiaphas, and then it was Sanhedrin. Right? Yep, Sanhedrin after the dawn. So the first rule, according to Jewish law, no person could be tried at night, and he did. No prisoner could be convicted on his own testimony, and they were trying to convict him on his own testimony when he said he is God. The judge was to protect the defendant rather than to direct and take part in arrest and persecution, which is exactly what we saw. It is always illegal to seek testimony from false witnesses, and we remember how they were looking for somebody to accuse him, falsely accuse him. The prisoner should be released when the witnesses do not agree. There was some confusion, but Jesus was not released. The undue haste of trial was illegal. It was so fast. It wasn't just done overnight. It wasn't just done at night. It was done overnight. We're talking about probably less than 12 hours. A day should have been allowed to intervene between the preliminary and final trials. And we see those trials back to back, all those 3 trials. The trial was held out of place in the first 2 stages, home of Annas and Caiaphas. And then the Jews altered the charges when they brought Jesus to Pilate, because Pilate was not going to accuse Jesus of doing something wrong, of blasphemy, right? Because they found him guilty on blasphemy. But before Pilate, they knew that it wasn't going to fly, so they said that he's insubordinate, and they brought different charges in front of Pilate. This whole situation tells me that they knew who they were dealing with. That's why it was really interesting to see all these laws that they knowingly broke. And it wasn't just one. It was, in this case, 8 or 9 of them. They shamefully beat and spat upon Jesus. So I don't think that was a rule. I don't know why it's included as the number 9. I'm assuming you can't just beat and spit on the defendant. But all those 9 rules were broken by every single one of them. The Roman trials, there were some interesting things in the Roman trial. The first Roman trial was before Pilate, then it was in front of Herod, and then Jesus came back to Pilate. What was interesting to see is that Jesus never talked in front of Herod, but he did talk to Pilate. Herod Antipas, third Roman trial before Pilate, and illegal aspects of the Roman trials. Jesus should have been acquitted after he was declared not guilty. When the Pilate first told him he is not guilty. He should have been acquitted, and all of that should have stopped. It was illegal to scourge an innocent man. I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, but the beating, right? If he was truly innocent man, he was not supposed to be beaten. In short, this was a judicial murder of Pilate's part for the sake of preserving his job. And I made note that he later killed himself. So Pilate was in charge of Jews. And in order to preserve his throne, because he was afraid that there was going to be an insurrection if he doesn't comply with their request, even though he didn't want to accuse Jesus, and his wife told him not to, because he wanted to keep his job, preserve his job, he went against his instincts. He went against his wife's wish, and he accused Jesus and basically murdered him because of the Jews, to appeal to them, because Jews could not kill Jesus by themselves. There needed to be Romans needed to be involved in the crucifixion. So it was just very interesting to see how everything unfolded so fast overnight, how all those trials were illegal even by their own customs. That's the last thing that I was learning yesterday. So a lot of good content, and I guess this is my mortgage stuff. But I guess my prayer is to not to just get the knowledge, but to get the change of heart going through all these classes. So I did do. Actually, let's open up my my education plan. So I did Old Testament Survey 1 and 2. I'm about to finish New Testament Survey 1, and I'll finish Survey number 2 later this year. I am taking U.S. government. I think it's U.S. government. What am I even taking? I think it was U.S. government. H230. Essentials of U.S. history. So I'm going to be taking that as a little break. I hope it's going to be actual break. Biology I already taking, so that's all good. I think I'm going to take, and I took Intro to Biblical Counseling. I think I'm going to wait on all these classes until later. What I'm thinking about taking is, after I do New Testament Survey 2, I might take as an elective class accounting, marketing, communication, languages, biblical studies. I was thinking about either apologetics or Revelation for my next class. And I know it's not going to be easy classes, but I think Revelation is so relevant. Revelation is relevant these days, and it always was. But I think Revelation would be a very interesting subject in apologetics. The interesting thing that I am a part of a Bible study chat on Viber, and I was talking to somebody the other day and talking about it, and somebody called it out that it's not really a Bible study chat, because there's no one person with authority. I'm just tired. It's only 2:00. No one person with authority that we agree with. It's more of a mash of people with different weird theologies. And I never thought that I would need to defend Bible, the authority of Bible, the inerrancy of Bible, in front of Christians. So there are some people that think that the Word of Bible, the Word of God, the Bible, is divinely inspired, but at the same time that there is a lot of mistakes, as they call it, a lot of additions, a lot of text editing. And what I can't understand is when I talk to them, like, how can you say that the Bible that you have, that you read, is God-breathed, inspired by God, but at the same time that there might be potentials for mistake. Like this one particular person, that's what he says. There's a lot of mistakes, but I trust the Bible. And then when I asked him when somebody else asked him about Revelation, he said that the Eastern Brothers, I think he's referring to, Western culture and the Eastern culture. The Eastern culture did not include Revelation of John into their canon until late 800s. And he was kind of holding the same view that book, the Revelation of John, was questionable, which is absolutely crazy to me because I thought majority. I know that we have our differences as far as languages. What I'm trying to say, the gift of languages, right? There's another word for it. We have our different views on salvation, Arminianism versus Calvinism. We have different takes on the Bible, different interpretations sometimes. But I never knew that a Christian person could question the authority of the Bible or its inerrancy, which is one of the basic doctrines that we have. I think this is the basic doctrine. I do agree that sometimes we might look at things differently when we translate our Bibles from the Greek, but to have this stance that the Bible might have some major mistakes, that was really crazy to me coming from a Christian person. I'm still deciding to stay in the chat because I take it as an opportunity to defend my theology and hopefully to help other people look for those questions in the Bible. Why do you believe what you believe? Do you believe something because it was told from the pulpit? Do you accept everything at the face value that is taught from the pulpit? Or do you have a real relationship with God and read His Word and ask Him to open up those truths to you and have a real relationship? Because that's what counts. So I do think that there's still value in being a part of that chat. I'm pretty active there. It was just very crazy for me to see that stance of the Bible by some Christians, and then there's another particular guy that makes everything. He doesn't deny the Bible, but he says that revelation, personal revelation, is almost the same as the Word of God. Which we're trying to tell him, well, how do you know it's from God? How do you know that it's true? And he would be referring to, sometimes I'll see things and then those things will be confirmed by the Bible. Sometimes he sees things or gets these revelations from God and that are not found in the Bible, which I think are very dangerous. So it's been very interesting, but I'm going to stay in that group. I hope that it helps me to grow in wisdom, how to deal with people with different views, how to correct my theology. And when I say my theology is by, what I believe in. What do I believe in, and can I defend it with the Bible? So it's been very interesting 2 or 3 months. It's been very busy. I need to get a haircut, even though it doesn't look too bad in the camera. But pray for me, and I hope you got something out of this as well. Read your Bibles.